Our next speaker, I do not have the privilege of introducing because a previous TGIF speaker is introducing her. So now let me bring Yasmin Abadian up to the stage, please. There you go. Thank you. Great.
Thank you. Janice. Can you all hear me? Yes. Great. So Janice Goldwater. I met Janice years ago when I went to an Adoptions Together, now known as Paths for Families event here in Potomac, called Taste in Potomac. We were guests of friends, and I wasn't aware of the organization, but I was a huge supporter of adoption, as my brother's daughters, my two precious nieces, who turned 13 and 17 this month, were adopted from Russia. I know personally, I cry, how much adoption gives to not only the children and parents, but also the extended family. From the very first moment I met Janice, I felt her warmth, her heart, and her dedication to children and families. What she has created and built is extraordinary. What she does is God's work. Nationally known for her impact on child and family welfare, Janice Goldwater founded Paths for Families nearly 35 years ago. And over that time frame, she has tirelessly connected and settled 10,000 children with loving parents and families. A respected voice in national media outlets such as MSNBC and CNN, Janice's work and advocacy has influenced public disclosure on child welfare for 3 decades, earning her numerous prestigious recognitions for the transformative impact, including the Angel in Adoption Award in 2022 from the Congressional Coalition on Adoption Institute. Janice is frequently tapped to embrace key advisory roles in major organizations such as the Commission on Trauma-Informed Care and the Maryland State Council for the Prevention of Child Abuse and Neglect. Under Janice's visionary leadership, the Paths for Families team does not simply navigate a broken system. They relentlessly advocate for what is right, ethical, and healthy for all involved, taking steps to pave a new path for what is possible. With a BA in sociology from Ithaca College and a master's degree in social work from Washington University, Janice continues to shape policies and lives, embodying a legacy of compassion, innovation, and advocacy in child and family well-being. Janice's personal and professional journeys merge in her role of a mother of 4, a blended family through birth and adoption. It is my absolute privilege and honor to present to you our guest speaker, Janice Goldwater.
Thank you, Janice. Thank you. Wow. What a beautiful introduction. How could it start any better than that? Whew. This morning, I'm here. I'm so excited to be here to really share a love story about family, community, and the angels that made it all happen. We work together to ensure that all children, locally and around the world, have parents of their own and the nurturing care of a family. Infants, toddlers, kids, teens, all of us, think back through your life. Imagine Each stage, we need family. Today, we need family. As I sit on the cusp of retiring from my role as CEO of Paths for Families, and I think about the thousands of lives that have been impacted and transformed by our services, I wonder, how could a young social worker start this organization and transform all of these lives? An organization that would settle more than 10,000 children in permanent families, 10,000 children whose many, their parents came to us seeking support and were able to get the support to raise their children themselves. Parents who came to us seeking support from an adoptive family. An adoptive family came forward and they were raised and loved and beloved. And then children who were raised within kinship families when their first families were unable to raise them themselves. You know, I wanted to come back to one thing in the introduction when the word unadoptable was mentioned. And just to tell you that there's no such thing as an unadoptable child. It's just that there's not yet found a family. And so every child, there is a family for every child. We have never turned away a child who needs a family. But first, before we get into it, I want you to just think for a minute about your mother or father or who it was that believed in you enough to get you to where you are today. Somebody loved you, they nurtured you, they invested in you, and that allowed you to have the capacity to grow up to be the beautiful, strong woman, man that you are today. And then think of yourself as a mother or a father or somebody that's got maternal energy or paternal energy to some other living being. We don't have to be in the role of mother to have a significant role in the life of another person. Raising a child is one of the biggest, hardest, and most important jobs that we will ever do. Whew. It's humbling. We show up, we do the best that we can, and when we know more, we do more. As the mother of 4, I can tell you, I still show up and learn more and do more when I know more every day. When I started the agency, my training was as a social worker, a therapist actually, and I knew nothing about running a business. I didn't know about creating a budget, a board of directors. I kind of knew what a nonprofit was, but not really. I just knew that there was this huge problem in the community and I had to do something about it. I had to take action and do something about it. I had a heart, a brain, a strong body, and I was on fire to do this work. I also had the capacity to motivate others and to spot brilliant people. Like Barb. In 1990, at the age of 33, I completed the bureaucratic process that would allow me to get what's called the Licensed Child Placement Agency. And that meant that we could take custody of a child, legally take custody of a child, and that child could then be adopted. We first got our license in Maryland, we would then get it in DC, and then finally in Virginia. So we're still licensed in all 3 jurisdictions. It's not really that simple, although it sounds simple when you talk about it, but really adoption is a one-time life event with lifelong implications. So it needs to be done really ethically, really carefully, really thoughtfully. And then if you wonder, like, well, why'd you do it? Like, what was the problem that led you to starting this organization? And first, I believe that children need to be raised in families, forever families, like every one of us. Every one of us here today is connected to somebody, to family. And at that time, there was a big problem in our community. There was a big gap. for those who could get served by organizations that were licensed child placement agencies in the nonprofit sector. There was, if you were healthy, if you were Caucasian or white, there was lots of opportunities for your child to be adopted. If you were brown, if you were black, if you were any race and you were not in optimal health, you had a substance use problem, there was something medically challenging with the child, there was very few opportunities, and they had to go to the state to get services. And as a social worker in the field, I saw firsthand women calling for help and being turned away because they fell into one of these categories. Women of all races who, just couldn't be served. Children like Naomi, who tested positive for HIV after she was born, or Rachel, whose mom used cocaine and hadn't disclosed it beforehand. Both of those are baby girls who came to us after they had been turned away by another organization in the community when they weren't exactly what the agency wanted. So we were right here to welcome every child, the healthiest of healthy children and the sickest of sick children. Everybody was welcome at Adoptions Together. The other thing was that in the 80s, and for those of us who were around in the DC area in the 80s, we may recall the crack cocaine epidemic that we had. In the 1980s, we had this terrible problem in the city of crack cocaine. And what would happen was women would be severely sick with their addiction. They would go to the hospital, they would deliver a baby, and their bodies would scream out to get back to the drug, and they would leave their child in the hospital. And these children, unfortunately, would spend months and sometimes years, their first birthday. I've even heard of some that hit their second birthday in the hospital. Not a place a baby needs to grow up, because there was nowhere for them to go. There were social services, but social services was so overwhelmed, and so these kids just languished in the hospital. So I thought, okay, what we need is an organization that would be available 24/7, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, to respond to the need if there was a baby born or expectant mom, so we could get there and she could have an intervention of at least enough, she could sign paperwork so we could get the baby out of the hospital and then work with her. So the hospitals were thrilled because we were a solution to that problem. We were thrilled because we knew children needed to be raised in families and we did not want them in the hospital. So that first year, I think in the first 18 months, we worked with 250 expectant parents, and probably, I think 61 of those women chose adoption for their children. All of those children began their lives with more support and intervention. And at the same time we had this problem of all of these children not being served. We also had the problem of adoptive parents, people who wanted to adopt children, but there was no place for them to go in our community, unless they were heterosexual, married for a defined amount of time, generally Christian, and often affluent. The rest of the community had to go to outside agencies around the country or work with lawyers and facilitators to do their own adoption. Healthy, mature, potential parents being excluded while children needed parents. That's why we started. Besides welcoming parents of all races and religions, married and single, we reached out to the LGBTQ community to create a culturally competent space where people could be seen, heard, and respected. All looking for mature, stable, prospective parents for children. I chose the name Adoptions Together, which we've recently rebranded as Paths for Family. As over the years, we've really expanded our services because we were working together with birth and adoptive families to make a plan for a child. The child is always centered in the middle of this child is the center of the intervention. And so we're working together. So birth parents would choose an adoptive parent or parents. The adoptive parent would say, yes, this is a child we would like to adopt, and they would work together in the best interests of that child. So we were busy. We were busy. It was thrilling, exhausting, and we needed some infrastructure. You heard how many kids we placed in that first year. In January of '92, we placed twins with a couple who had lots of experience with fundraising. This new mom told me, we kind of fell in love, this new mom and I, and she said, Janice, if there's ever anything you need, you can call me. So, the polite woman that I am, I did wait. She did have newborn twin girls. So I thought, I'll wait a couple months. So I did. And then I reached out to call her, and oh my God, Sharon Kleinman is the first angel that I want to talk about today. Sharon, who's here with her beautiful daughter, Olivia, who's the next Dr. Kleinman. The next Dr. Kleinman. Sharon told me that her dream of motherhood had come true, and if there was ever anything else that she would do, then that I could always call her. The first thing she would do was that she would organize a group of people to host a wine and cheese event so we could talk about what the need was. And we could introduce them to the work and do the support. She created a core group of volunteers, and our first event was a yard sale that raised $5,000. She then led us to the TPC at Avenel, where we hosted our first casino night. To our amazement, we would raise $50,000 to help cover the costs of placing our medically fragile children. This was the first of many events that would raise hundreds of thousands of dollars to cover the cost of the work. Sharon and her husband, Brad, joined our board of directors, and with their leadership, helped recruit an incredible community of people. That's how we became alive in Potomac. It was through our beloved Kleinmans and their investment in children and families. Her legacy of action lies deeply within this organization. Children have families because she invested her time, her talent, and her treasures. Thank you, Sharon. With Sharon's leadership, a dream team of Sharon, Debbie Schick, Judy Sebring, and Jane Phillips came together as this remarkable team to put on events. We started with the Share the Care for Children. I don't know if anybody was back around that time. We then went on to Joanne Howard, Share the Care for Children. And Taste of Potomac now has been around for 18 years. Our first 5 years of Taste of Potomac was in Judy's backyard in Falls Grove. These women are an example of how a small group of people can step up and really make a difference. Another family who's really stepped up to make a difference is Yasmin Abadian and Jim McWhorter. I know it's not like the Mutual Love Society, and I cannot be here talking about people who make a difference, not only in the whole of Potomac community, because you two are involved in so many things, but how you've stepped up to really help this organization. Both brilliant entrepreneurs, Yasmin and Jim, have shared their business acumen, their friends. I met Barbara at Yasmin's house when we did a fundraiser, and their financial resources. They shared their beautiful home in the Outer Banks for our silent auction. They've done so much, and your legacy and Jim's legacy are deep within the organization. Because every child needs a family, when we learned of the many children around the world who need parents, we set up an international adoption program. In 1992, we began working in Russia and other Eastern European countries, then China, Vietnam, Guatemala, and there would be other countries as the years went on. Over the years we did international adoption, we would find parents for more than 2,500 children. In 2000, over the Christmas holiday, I took a trip to Russia where we would visit 11 orphanages. We would deliver medical supplies, we would deliver food, fresh fruit and vegetables. Like these kids, I remember giving a little boy a banana and he took the whole banana and he went, he didn't know how to eat a banana. He never had one before. It was like they have to peel it. Another little girl with an orange. So we would bring critical supplies to the orphanages for the kids who were left behind. That trip was really difficult. Like sitting on the floor and being swarmed by toddlers, like puppies, who just needed touch, who just needed somebody to be with them. Whew, heartbreaking. So I came back thinking we've got to do even more. And so at the time of this trip, I had 3 children. My oldest was a senior in high school. My daughter was a sophomore in high school. And my youngest was in the 5th grade. And I came back on fire and I said to my husband, we've got to adopt a child. We've got to. And he also works in child welfare, and he worked as a guardian ad litem in the district, and which is somebody who works with kids that are in care. And so he said, I am fully in on adopting. I just want the child to be from this country because there's 400,000 children in the United States waiting for parents, and I think we need to step up and adopt one of those children. So today, there's about 100,000 children living in foster care, children who need parents, and we are very focused on that population. My husband and I would go forth to adopt our 4th child. We found her, she was in New York. She was 9 years old. She loved dogs. She was great with little kids. She was absolutely adorable, and we went and brought her home. She's now 32. She's healthy, she's strong, and an actively functioning member of the community. The adjustment was a little more challenging than we had imagined, and the gift of having a rough adjustment was that we got to access every level of services, the kinds of services we were providing to support families, because not only do we welcome every child and every family, but we're with them every step of the way. So that means that we wrap services and support around the families to really help deal with the trauma and the issues that arise. So having to access all of those services, and as an experienced mother, now being a mom to a child who had been severely hurt in her first 9 years of life, made me learn a whole new set of skills, and I had to it really brought me to my knees, resulted in coming up so much taller and stronger, and we've trained therapists around the area. We've really enhanced all of the services that are available to support this population of the community. So as I transition from my role of my beloved Paths for Families, my heart is so full. I'm so proud of our team. I have my successor, Lisa Dominguez, just right here. I'm so grateful for the community and so hopeful for the future. While transitioning from a role at an organization that I created in 1990 may appear simple, getting to the place where we are today has taken about 3 years of focused work. We're strong, we're focused, and poised for a very bright future. As you contemplate where you can make a difference in this world, please know that we need you. I dream of 3 things. First, that my successor, Lisa, be given the gift of angels like Sharon, Debbie, Judy, Jane, Yasmin, Jim, or maybe somebody here in the room, somebody here, or maybe some of you in the room, who want to step up and embrace her as she steps into this new role and leads this dynamic organization into its next chapter. Second, I ask if you'll consider joining us in our Taste of Potomac event, sharing it with your networks, coming yourself, getting involved in the committee. Lori Marks, our committee chair, is right here, and she will absolutely welcome your support. Joining our board of directors or a volunteer committee. You know, the 10,000 is just the beginning. There are so many kids in our community that still need families. There's so much for us to do, and together we can do it so much more. Thank you.
Thank you, Janice. Wow. Who knew? Who knew that one woman could make such a difference in the lives of so many children? And there are so many more children, and we are grateful that you, Lisa, have stepped into these big shoes.